All right. Thank you for tuning into our class right now. My name is Mustafa Belgrave, and today what we're going to do, we're going to start talking about some beginning points of entrepreneurship. And I think that in light of the economy and the things that are going on now, we need to really have a basic understanding of finance and how to use our money better, and also stemming into branching into some sort of business for us. We're going to get into some definitions. I mean, we're not gonna get heavy into any business lingo or anything. I mean, we're going to be talking in a language where I feel that most of us as laymen can understand. And this first class, we're just going to be touching on some of we're going to basically touch on the importance of basically having our own businesses and being able to control our finances. Now, when most people think of an entrepreneur, they generally think of, and they correct in some ways, think of somebody who has their own business and somebody successful. Now, the thing is about an entrepreneur is that not entrepreneurs are successful in their first venture. Sometimes it might take them 2 and 3 times to get it right. And what we've noticed is that 8 out of 10 businesses that start in the first year fail. That's 8 out of 10 small businesses in America that start in the first year they fail. And there's a lot of reasons why they fail. Number one is preparation. They weren't prepared with the right tools or the right advice to start their own business. Maybe they didn't do research. They didn't research in the field. They didn't do case studies. How many times maybe have you seen people open up a store in a neighborhood and a week or 2 later it closes down? You know, so we see this happening. Now, basically, what an entrepreneur does, an entrepreneur is somebody who starts and runs their own business, sometimes from their ideas off other people's ideas. And believe it or not, many countries are basically built on the backs of entrepreneurs. Maybe they're not small level entrepreneurs, but it all started with small ideas that morphed into big companies. And some of the original entrepreneurs, they thought they were crazy. Whether they invented cars and they started a car business or it was airplanes, they thought that some of them were crazy. So sometimes to be an entrepreneur and to have your own business, there's sometimes a little bit of a independent streak in some people, where they feel that they're tired of working for people and they want to have their own thing. They want to control their finances and they want to control, they want to control what they do with their life and their time. Now, recently, if you've been paying attention, probably from 2008 up until now, we noticed that, well, actually in 2008 was the high point, was when the market crashed in America. The housing market crashed. This housing market was the whole mortgage finance market kind of crashed, and that's a whole nother class within itself. But what had happened at that time is that there were a lot of jobs were lost, a lot of houses were lost, and poverty rates increased, joblessness increased. What's been happening as well is that I always feel that there's been a crash in the education field as well, because we're moving now into what we call we're in the information age right now, and I feel that a lot of the ways that we prepare our kids is that we're still preparing our kids like there's no information age. So what do most of our parents say? All right, let's say you're from a neighborhood or your family, you're the first one to go to college, for example. And everybody says that. You see the commercial. They say, my son's going to be the first one to go to college. All right? And in general, education, does prepare you for the world. My father used to say that education's not a waste of money. That's a twofold answer there. But it's not just college, because once you go to school, whether you finish high school, then you go to college, then you have to make sure that you have a career that's going to be able to pay your bills. So what happens if you do everything that you were told to do, and now financially you're still in the problem? And which is what the majority of Americans are right now. And don't get it wrong, you got three types of Americans. You got the poor, you got the middle class, and you got the rich. The rich know they're rich, and the middle class are just middle class. They're just poor, but they think they're middle class. And the poor is just poor because the poor know they're poor. So at least they know their lane. But middle class are, like we say, poor people with mortgages or poor people with bills. And you sometimes hear the saying sometimes that you're only one paycheck away from the street. So if you're one paycheck away from the street, if you don't get paid next week and it's going to throw your whole life in turmoil like the most of us, then rest assured that technically we're really kind of poor here. All right? Now, just because you're an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily mean you're not poor. But you're more so in control of what you're doing. You're not working under anybody, and you can make some adjustments as needed. All right? Now, if you look at a majority of our neighborhoods, in our cities, in some of these communities that we sometimes look at, and we see that, you know, there are a lot of drugs on the streets, and there are a lot of, you know, a lot of homelessness and things like that. If you look at even some of the poorest neighbors in America, you see that there are many signs of entrepreneurship in our neighborhood, okay? So if you look at many of our Chinese restaurants, for example, every poor neighborhood has Chinese restaurants, right? Are they profitable? Of course they're profitable. Why? Because they provide a service to the people in the community that they can afford. So if you look at Chinese food, what's one thing about Chinese food? It's cheap. Get a couple of wings, egg roll, and you still got some change, all right? It's cheap and it's convenient, all right? Some of them are dirty, but who cares? All right? So it's cheap and it's convenient way. If you look at the corner stores, our corner markets, a lot of the bodegas, a lot of the Spanish markets, it's convenient. Are they cheap? No, because if you buy milk at the corner store, it might be 2 times more than the supermarket. But guess what? You don't have a car. You can't get the shop right. So they're going to charge you up on price. It's convenient. And we've all done it. You had to go out, get some milk for dinner real quick. Your wife needs to get stuff for dinner, or you got to get something done. You got to run to the store and get something real quick. So it's convenience for the people. All right? So even in some of the poorest neighborhoods, in some of the poorest neighborhoods in America, the entrepreneur, he's the one that's really striving in these neighborhoods. And that's why they stay in these neighborhoods. All right? Now, the question is a lot of people think that to have their own business or to start their own business, that you have to be educated and you have to have money. And studies have showed that that's not, it's true, but it's not true. Educated, yes, you have to understand the principles of business and how to go about it. You don't necessarily need a college education, because many of the billionaires in the world, they don't have degrees. They don't have education. Some of them dropped out of school. And money. Some people started broke. You know, you look at people like, for example, a lot of you like to wear polo. Ralph Lauren, when he started, Ralph Lauren was broke. He's from the projects. He was broke. All right? A lot of these people, these entrepreneurs that started, they were broke. Some of the people, like the author of the Rich Dad Poor Dad, you know, Robert Kiyosaki, he slept in a car, you know, with his wife because he was homeless at one time. So many of the world's billionaires, they really started from modest beginnings, but they had a plan and they stuck with it. So with that being said, there's really no excuse why we can't go down some of those paths. And we're talking about people that were really poor, you know, some rural poor, from the poorest counties and the poorest states in America. And they started something small and they moved their way up. All right? Now,